Hey everybody, welcome to the Unit 4 Fall Semester Review. This is the non-calculator part of it, so I will be skipping certain questions that I can do in the calculator. Number 1, identify the vertex, axis, symmetry. I'll identify all this stuff given this graph. Well, the vertex is the highest or the lowest point of the graph. So this is a vertex right here. What are the coordinates of this? This is 2 across, 3 up. So that's 2, 3. And then remember, the axis of symmetry is the x coordinate of the vertex. Axis, x, so x equals 2. The min-max value is the y value of the vertex, so that's y equals 3. And then you need to circle which one is it. Is it a min or a max? Is this the highest or the lowest point? This is the highest point because everything's going down after that. So I'm going to circle max. My domain, if you'll recall, any quadratic function, the domain is always all real numbers. So I wrote the domain twice and the range twice because you might see it represented in various forms. Negative infinity to positive infinity, or you might see it, let's see here, what's the other way? You might see the R. That's the other way you would see it for all real numbers. But remember, parentheses are for things you can't touch. You can never touch infinity. And brackets are for things you can touch, which is useful for the range because the range goes to 3. It's always going to have that max value. It'll be in the range. So let's see here. 3 is the highest value, right? And then it goes down forever. So technically the lowest point it can touch is negative infinity. Well, it can't touch negative infinity, but I think you get what I'm saying. So that's in parentheses, and then I'll put 3 in a bracket for telling you that it is able to touch 3. All right? And then the other way of saying that would be y is less than or equal to 3. Okay? So that's everything on number 1. Number 2 is in the calculator, so I'm going to skip that. Number 3... is not in the calculator, so you have this formula, and if it passes through any point, any given point, that's x comma y, and the vertex is h comma k. So you just plug in those points into this formula, so it's going to look like 6 equals a times x is 2, h is negative 3, so minus negative 3 squared plus k, so plus negative 4. I'm not going to write plus negative 4, I'm just going to write minus 4. All right, so we have 6 equals a times, let's see here, this is 2 plus 3, that's 5, and 5 squared is 25, minus 4. So let's just clean this up. It should say 25a, not a25. All right, so just solve for a. Plus 4 to the other side. All right, this is 10 equals 25a. We'll divide both sides by 25. And then 10 over 25 will reduce to 2 over 5. So that's all you need to figure out the value of a. And then you just plug it in. When you write your function, you always leave the y, the f of x or the y behind and the x behind. So you plug in the a, and then you plug in the h and the k. So rather than writing minus negative 3, you know that 2 subtraction signs turn into a plus. And if you'll recall, you flip the sign on the inside. So I'll write x plus 3 squared minus 4. This is the answer to the question. All right, and I did write here test taking tip. This is very important. Let's say you get stuck on this. You would want to graph the equations of the answer choices and find the table that matches. So press Control T and find these points in the table, and then, it's just a matter of process of elimination at that point. All right, so keep that in mind. This is very important. For A, we'll do in the calculator. 5A, write the equation of a parabola with the directrix is y equals negative 2. So I did put the formula on here. But I did not put the formula for the directrix, so let me just add that. The directrix is going to be y equals negative p. And then if it comes up again later, the focus equals 0 comma p. And you'll recall that these formulas are basically the same. If your equation's in x equals, then this will say x equals negative p, and then p will be in the x coordinate. So if you're one of my students, I'm going to put this on the paper before I make copies. But yeah, back to this, we just need to figure out what p is. And so p is going to be the opposite sign of the directrix. So this tells me that p is 2. So I'm going to do, and then it doesn't matter that the vertex is at the origin, because it's not going to be any letters in here. So y equals 1 over 4 times 2 x squared. So it must be y equals 1 over 8 x squared. And then I did write this test taking tip, but I'm going to take that out because you cannot see the directrix on the graphing calculator. So this one is purely formula based, okay? 6a, write the equation in intercept form. So this is one where you could graph all the answer choices and then press Control T and find these points in the table, and you know which one's the right answer. Oh, I wrote the wrong letters. This should say a p, x minus p, and x minus q. So if you're one of my students, that should be corrected already. So it goes p is an intercept, q is an intercept, x and y are your non-intercepts. How do you know if it's an intercept? It has a 0 for the y coordinate. So we're going to plug everything in. We're going to plug in y for 3 for y equals a times x is 7, so 7 minus 5, and then x is 7 minus negative 4, so 7 plus 4. All right, so we just need to get these two numbers. This is a times 2 times 11, so that makes that 22. 2 times 11, so it says 3 equals 22a. So divide by 22, and you get a equals 3 over 22. So writing your equation would just be, y equals, or f of x equals 3 over 22, and then you just plug in the p and q. So x minus p, x minus 5, and x minus q would be x plus 4. And so when you graph this equation, you'll find these 3 points in the table. Number 7, find the focus in directrix. So let's see here. We need to get this to look like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide by negative 2. And so we have y equals, and we had 1x squared divided by negative 2, right? So I'm just going to write negative 1 over 2x squared. Okay, and so the importance of that was to get it in y equals, and so we go 1 over 4p equals negative 1 over 2. We do like a proportion. And then since it's a negative fraction, just pick one of the numbers to be negative. So I'll just pick the top one. So we're going to cross multiply here. So we got 1 times 2, that's 2. And we have 4p times negative 1, so negative 4p. So that means we divide by negative 4. And that'll reduce to negative 1/2. So p equals negative 1/2. So it's kind of a coincidence that it was the same number over here. But yeah, that's how it went. So p's negative 1/2. Then you'll have to recall what I just wrote right here about the directrix and the focus. So we're going to flip the sign for the directrix, but we won't flip the sign for the focus. So let me go back. So our directrix will be y equals positive 1/2, and our focus will be 0, comma, negative 1/2. The sign stays the same, okay? Let's see here. Let's move on to number 8. Another one that you can graph. Graph your answer choices and then press Control T. It's going to be just like one we did earlier. You have a vertex down here, so that means you have H and K. And then you have a random point here, so that's going to be X and Y. So if I'm going to do this by hand, I'm going to plug in everything you know and figure out the A. So f of x is y, and y was 6. So I'm going to write down 6 equals A times, and then x was 4. 4 minus h is 2. Plus k was negative 2, and this is squared. So, yeah, so what's 4 minus 2? That's 2. What's 2 squared? That's 4. So we have 4a minus 2 equals 6. So let's add 2 to the other side, and we get 8. 6 plus 2 is 8. 8 equals 4a. Divide both sides by 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So a equals 2. So what's my equation? F of x equals, now 2, comma, and then you always write the x. So x minus h, we had written x minus 2 squared minus 2, okay? So, yeah, that's the answer. And like I said, if you were to graph your answer choices, this would be one of the answer choices, because obviously I gave you the right answer. But when you do Control T, you'll find these 2 points in the table. Number 9, back to this, I need to scratch out the H and K and use P and Q, because that's the correct letters of the formula. So P and Q are your intercepts. So P is here, Q is there, X and Y are your other points. So plug in everything you know. So Y is 25, so it's going to say 25 equals A times, and then X was what, 1? So 1 minus P, but P was negative 4. So minus a negative 4 is plus 4. And then 1 minus, and then Q was 6, so minus 6. All right, so what's 1 plus 4? That's 5. What's 1 minus 6? That's negative 5. What's 5 times negative 5? Negative 25. So if you have 25 equals negative 25a, well then dividing by that will get you negative 1. So if a is equal to negative 1, then our equation is simply f of x equals negative 1, parentheses, x plus 4. Right? These numbers stay there, the plus 4 and the minus 6. And then x minus 6. And then just to reiterate the test-taking tip, you can graph your answer choices and then press Control T, and you'll find those 3 points in the table. If you don't, it's not the right answer. Last one here, number 10a, write the equation of the parabola with the following attributes. And I did give you the formula because that's how you're going to write it. This is the vertex form. I know it's in vertex form because it's giving me a max value. Max or min is always using the vertex. Axis of symmetry and max value are tied together to the vertex, and then the 0 is just your other point. So let's see here. If it says your 0 is at x equals 1, then that means it's at 1, comma 0. And so that's helpful because if you're going to do this by hand, you need to plug in something for x and y. So you need to plug in 1 for x and 0 for y. So I'm going to go 0 equals a times x is 1 minus h. Now what could h be? So remember, the axis of symmetry is the x coordinate of your vertex. So I'm going to write vertex here. And your vertex is negative 2, comma, and then the max value is the y value of it, 5. Why am I bringing that up? That's going to be your h and your k. So plug in your h and your k, so minus -2 turns into plus 2 squared, and then plus k would be plus 5. All right, so let's see here. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So I have 0 equals 9a plus 5. I got a minus 5 to the other side. So that'll give me -5 equals 9a. And so I got to divide by 9. And so I get -5 over 9 for my fraction. Or for my a. It is a fraction, sorry. And so my equation is going to be f of x equals -5 over 9 and x minus h, so x plus 2 squared, and then plus k is 5. So that's the answer. So for some of you, it really would make more sense for you to, or be easier for you to graph the equations. And, you could do Control T if you know where the vertex is. But let's say you didn't even know that this was the max value or that that's in the vertex. Do menu 6-2 to find the max. The x-coordinate is the axis of symmetry. The y-coordinate's the maximum. And then do menu 6-1 and you'll find the 0. So once you do that, you would have checked off this, this, and this, and you don't even have to really worry about the opens down. But just remember, if it opens down, then A will be negative. If it opens up, A would be positive. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. So I did get a negative value for the A. And then you can just look at the graph too. When you graph it, anyone that opens up makes a U. Is not the right answer. It has to open down. Anyway, thanks for watching this. I know this is a long video. I will do the calculator ones in part 2, so stay tuned for that. Bye.